Welcome to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast. Well, thanks for joining us on the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast today. We are joined by Anne Edwards and Amelia Chasey from the School of Biophilia. Both are architectural technologists and they have a vast background in sustainable, restorative and bespoke architecture. They're both passionate about improving the built environment and user well-being through biophilic design. And they run a design practice as well as the School of Biophilia. And if you're interested in what they do check out the Journal of Biophilic Design website and also on Amazon, and check out the light edition, which is issue 15, and they've got an article in there. So thanks very much for your support. Today we're going to be discussing why biophilia should be fundamental training for the next generation. So first of all, Anne and Amelia, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invite.
Lovely. Well, can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, please? You know, a bit about your backgrounds. Obviously, you're both architectural technologists, and maybe even a little bit about how you met. I don't know. What you?
So we go back probably about 12 years now. I enrolled at university, and Anne was actually my lecturer. So we've studied together, and we've had the relationship of tutor and pupil, and from graduating, we've kind of just kept that connection and passion together for architectural technology and biophilic design. So we've worked really hard on our goals as technologists and designers and kind of biophilic ambassadors, and it's all come together for the School of Biophilia.
Okay,
that's it. So yes, I trained as an architect, but many years ago I went into academia and I started teaching. And I taught design, professional practice, and the sort of building technology side of things. I was a big advocate for women sort of in construction, but when Amelia got to her third year, she was doing a design project that looked at the impact of colour on people's pain.
Yeah.
And we then started lots of conversations around biophilia, about sort of pain management. I'll let Amelia sort of talk a little bit about that. And like Amelia sort of says, that relationship then developed and grew. Sort of Amelia graduated. I was very keen to watch what she was doing in sort of practice. And then a few years ago, we just went, we need to be doing something about this instead of just talking about it all the time.
Wow, amazing. I'm actually just going to just circle back on that colour thing, Amelia. Sorry, this completely now we're going off piece before we even start. So, I mean, obviously, I mean, the reason I set this up was because I want to get biophilic design into healthcare. That's kind of like my one of my main reasons. And you've mentioned pain relief and colour. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to distill like all your years of research in like, you know, literally 2 minutes, but kind of in a nutshell, maybe we could talk about it again, but maybe in a nutshell, you could just kind of explain a little bit about what color, you know, which colors are best.
Yeah, so specifically, I was looking at the light and lighting colours. So I'll speak about my personal kind of background into this later on. But what I was looking at was how the different variants of coloured lighting affects your response to pain management and how you respond to treatment. So when you enter a clinical environment and it's really white and harsh, you can feel quite disengaged with the environment. Yeah. So a lot of it's just softening that environment and providing a lot of choice. That's a big part for patients kind of in pain management who've kind of lost that disconnect and control over their life and treatment. Really simple things like providing a choice of light and colour in that direct environment can kind of create a big shift in their response to treatment.
Yeah.
And that kind of led on to further research of light and colour in end-of-life care and hospital environments. So yeah, it's really interesting and there's a lot on it, and hopefully we're going to look at different guides for like simple things to do at home or in the office, like light guides, nature guides, plant guides that just help improve your environment.
Yeah, that sounds really good. We'll keep you posted on those, and I'll be sure to share them and and help disseminate them. That would be really great. Well, can you tell us maybe obviously why biophilic design is important to each of you, please?
So I've touched on it briefly. My personal experience with biophilic design was I was struggling with chronic pain and I was a patient in a lot of hospitals, and I saw the design side as an architectural technologist, and I really wanted to improve the built environment. But I also saw it on the personal side, as where I was kind of at the end of pain treatment, and I was at a bit of a loss, didn't know how to cope, didn't know how to get through everyday life, and I had to kind of source other ways of helping my pain and how to kind of get on with life. So that's when I did my own research in my master's and beginning PhD journey of using biophilia as a tool to help with pain management. So bringing in my personal and professional, I can bring that together to hopefully create really healthy and healing environments.
Sounds beautiful. And Anne, what about you?
Mine comes, I think from my sort of upbringing. I was very, very fortunate. I grew up in a cottage right next to the farm. I have always been sort of an outdoors person, and then I studied in Germany, or I worked and studied in Germany. And I think they were a little bit further along on the conversations about sort of sustainability and the impact of the built environment on people's health and well-being. So that was in my sort of early 20s. And that realization that sort of, movement heals, whether it's to do with sort of the more sort of alternative educational philosophies as well. So from the Montessori sort of philosophies and things like that. So it's always just been sort of something that it's always felt quite natural. It didn't feel like it was a light bulb moment for me. It was always sort of just there, go outside, whether that's if you're a little bit stressed or if you're a little bit anxious, the impact of sort of soil under your nails and things like that. It's just who I think or how I grew up. And when I then went into teaching, it was a realization that that wasn't a conversation that was being had, that the impact of nature on us as a part of nature. So then that became sort of a big focus of sort of my teaching and my direction. So like I say, I taught design studio, so we often brought that in. I taught how we looked at sort of existing buildings, so how we adapt that. And there was a theory sort of building in layers, and we brought that in. And that's where we you look at sort of a building through a series of layers, and they're actually time layers. So site surrounding all the way down to senses. And sort of at one end, you can see how nature has an impact. And then at the other end, you can think about the senses, how we design for the senses. And then you loop that all the way back to sort of the environment that it comes in. So the tree outside and the impact it has on the cell and what happens in that journey in between.
Okay. Wow. So you've really sort of real, pulling all the threads together, really.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, like I sort of say that the way of thinking about buildings, that the way I was teaching was like in a series of times. Species. So your site and surroundings are fairly static. Your structure is a time layer that you don't want to be messing around, but then spaces, how people move within those spaces, the stuff that you put in the spaces and the cells and things like that can change, and they change at different times. So it's looking at that sort of the impact of time has on sort of a cell. So the light on an eye, that happens very, very quickly. But then where that light has come from might be from the universe, and it's taken million years to get to us to get to the cell. Anyhow, there you go. Slightly off topic.
Oh, wow, very good. So what were you teaching? What was the topic? What was the thing you were teaching?
Well, so I sort of say I taught design practice, professional studies, and then I taught technology, but I always taught it from a very holistic point of view and from a joined up point of view. So we would often, even when we're talking about sort of building technology, Amelia will remember the times when I'd go, right, what happens to a raindrop? It drops on a roof onto a slate. What happens to that raindrop? Where is it going? You have to design the journey that raindrop will take, to a gutter, to a downpipe. Then where does it go? Does it go back into the building? Does it go into another service? How is it actually dealt with? So whether it was a detail or whether it was sort of, from a professional practice, how do we keep water out of a building? Or then from a design point of view, let's design a building around the raindrop or a sunbeam or sound and things like that. So, yeah, I approach things slightly differently. Tended to upset a few people, but hey ho.
I think it sounds like a really great idea. I mean, I've just like taken the idea of a raindrop. I mean, as you're saying that, I was conjuring like loads of ideas in my head. Like, yeah, if somebody who's really creative, who's an architect or as you say, a designer, yeah, that would spark ideas, wouldn't it? Like, oh, can we do something with that raindrop? Can we redirect? Oh my God, I love it. I love it. And And actually, this is kind of it brings us on really nicely actually to the School of Biophilia, what you're doing now, and now it's sort of actually it's starting to kind of take shape in my mind, really, where you both are coming from, um, because I can imagine that the School of Biophilia, the concept of it, which you're going to talk about in a second, but you're the way you're teaching this will, I should imagine, be really creative, really inspiring, and different as well, and using nature to kind of inform the learning process. I mean, Kate, I mean, there's quite a lot to cover here, but can you tell us a little bit about what the School of Biophilia is, please?
Amelia, are you going to start with that one?
Yeah, so I think we definitely tie on what Anne's just said, and the whole part of School of Biophilia is taking a person, a child on a journey through the educational system and teach them a new way to learn, to engage and interact with the environment. So we know that a lot of the early years they learn and engage through the storytelling and doing things and telling stories about items of nature, and that's how they ingrain that skill set within them. So we've kind of catered the teaching resources for that through the different ages, and we've looked at how this can be accessible for everyone. So we've looked at downloadable guides and digital downloads that can be available for a lesson plan within an instant, or we've looked at workshops and activities that we can provide or that can be carried out on Zoom and Teams. And we've kind of taken it further to how else we can support the School of Biophilia and how we can get the message across. So we've also launched our shop today. It has all of our resources on it and teaching content, but it also has that really fun side of t-shirts for kids of nature on it that can kind of be like a nature scavenger hunt with bugs on it, where they can go in the garden and I found this bug or I've seen this. So we're trying to make it really fun and engaging for everyone, but with the message behind it that we need to bring nature back into education and it should be part of the whole curriculum.
Wow, that sounds brilliant. Fantastic. And Anne?
Well, I was just about to say, so like as Amelia sort of says, we've done all of that, and then there was also that conversation sort of with teachers. So I when I went to school, or my contemporaries, a lot of them went into education. So having conversations with people who were head teachers, deputy heads, subject leads, and things like that, they were also saying it's great, but what we don't want is something in addition. We want it to align with what we're already doing. So we very much looked at the curriculum and tried to bring in sort of biophilia directly into the curriculum. So it's not that a teacher or someone from education has to learn something new. We're trying to provide them the resources and then align that with a curriculum sort of aspect. So we've looked at sort of how you would bring biophilia into English or into maths or into even a German class. You could do a whole class. We've offered a class where you look at sort of language, the German language, the English language, the sort of, even the words and things like that, and how you can bring those. So we're not trying to ask teachers to do something in addition. We're just sort of saying, here's a resource. If you're struggling for a lesson, here, slip this in. We can slip in by almost like undercover. There you go.
Yeah, I like that. Like sniper biophysics design teaching. I like it. So what was the thing that kick-started the idea? I mean, I kind of got a bit of an idea really already, but was there like a moment? Was there like a light bulb moment between you, or just independent, or what was the thing?
So, like I say, I think Amelia and I have always had these conversations.
Yeah.
And there was a time, probably about sort of 18 months ago, where we just sort of went, we just need to keep talking about this because something will happen.
Yeah.
I think we both knew that there was something there. It just wasn't formed. So we gave ourselves a little space. Once a week, we would just touch base and have these conversations around it. And then probably about sort of 10 months ago, Amelia just went, we just need to talk. We just need to educate other people on this. And we just went, well, let's start the School of Biophilia. That's the way I saw it. And then those conversations became a little bit more structured conversations. But I really do think it started from the fact that we sensed there was something
Yeah.
and we just gave ourselves time to talk. Some of the conversations we were having were about boyfriends and children and things like that. But we'd created the space for those conversations to take place.
That's really nice. I think that's really important, isn't it? Really, when you realize there's something there, it's just like to kick it around a little bit, isn't it? And then that magic will happen in the way it's supposed to. And I think it's great because I know when we spoke before, and you told me about it. Was it the conference last year? I think it might have been. I can't remember. You mentioned it when I can't remember what it had been before, but I was like, what a bloody good idea. This is brilliant, you know.
Well, so again, that sort of it was the obvious, and I think that's what we were sort of struggling with when we were having these conversations. That we knew that there was something in sort of both Amelia and my sort of skill set
Mm.
that was overlapping and that was
Yeah.
going to sort of generate something. But I think sometimes we were overthinking what we were sort of planning to do with it. And then it literally was, well, I as an architect and architectural technologist, as an ex-educator, as a recovering academic, I have that learning bit. How do you put a program together? How do you run a workshop? How do you sort of understand what your learning outcomes is and things like that? The whole sort of conversation around curriculum as well. So understanding sort of conversation with teach. And then Amelia brought in the youth, the drive, the sort of slightly more sort of detailed looking at sort of biophilia sort of stuff. And it's just so far, I think it's worked really well. We live in different parts of the countries. We do this sort of pretty much all on technology.
Yeah.
We again create spaces, physical spaces where we can meet. So last week I was down with Amelia. We created a nice space outside, or Amelia had created a nice table outside where we sat and worked for the day. It was gorgeous.
Oh, nice. Isn't that lovely? It's really lovely. So how do you actually deliver it then? I mean, you mentioned like the national curriculum and things, but what's like what would be like an average like a sample class look like? I mean, or what would it, how do you deliver it? I mean, you mentioned sort of briefly about, you like German, you would sort of give them some words or something, but
Amelia?
We've tried to break it down into really clear, so the problem, so an early years class, for example, and we've broken it down into an hour, 2.5 hours, 5 hour sessions, so that it's so kind of accessible for anyone. And I think it really varies on the person who is looking for this content. So for an hour session, they may download our activity and or even subscribe. Actually, we've set up a monthly subscription where you can sign up as a teacher or a parent and download these resources or get them to email each month. So we've also kind of issuing out planners as well, so you can time or plan for the month how you can fit these sessions into your schedule. So, for example, they could have an hour session on a Monday morning that can be carried out inside or outdoors. We break down exactly what they need, and we try to make it so easily available. So it could be that on a Monday morning, they don't need to remember extra things to bring in for the session or extra homework for the parents. It can, part of the activity is that the children go outdoors, they do the nature scavenger hunt, they'll find specific items in nature for the activity, and they have that storytelling journey throughout the session.
yeah.
So even in areas where it's really built up and there isn't, woodies and forest around there, it's providing them with a skill set and tips and tools to find nature within that area that they can come back into their setting. And there's different workshops. So we do like portraits in nature as well, which is a really nice one. And yeah, we've changed that for each key stage so that it is so available for anyone, any environment. And before you download that, you know what you need. It's really simple. We don't want to add to the homework or resources.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you're really making it easier for the teachers and to actually integrate this into the program. Like you say, if they're looking for like ideas for to incorporate in their lesson, or if they finish early or something like that, they go, oh, actually, yeah, this is a great idea. And all the resources, and all they've got to do is just literally click and download, and it's already there.
I think our message as well. Sorry, I should say, I think our message as well is that there's a lot of nature activities out there, but the difference with the School of Biophilia is that we're providing with each activity the why you feel good from the activity and what you're getting out of the activity. So rather than it just being a nature activity where you're outdoors, you're learning about the journey of biophilia as well. So for teachers as well to carry on that message of biophilia in education, we're helping to build on that with the more sessions and workshops and digital downloads that you take on. You're learning as the provider as well. If it's not through us, through a workshop or Zoom, for a teacher to take on that digital download as well, they're learning about that as well, which helps in the whole kind of journey of biophilia.
Yeah, so what you're saying is then if a teacher's, so you basically help educate the teacher in what biophilia is that right? Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. So we also offer workshops, and again, they can be bespoke workshops. So they approach us and sort of say, "This is what we're after. could you help us? And we can work with them with their sort of quite specific needs and requirements. Or they go, we have no idea. Can we just have a workshop where you can just introduce this and then we can carry the conversation on? So again, that would be a more generic sort of workshop where we could almost do a workshop for teachers, just almost like a quick CPD, an hour to introduce and hopefully sow the seed that they go away and then go, actually, this is something we need to be introducing.
Yeah. And what is the feedback from the teachers? Do they embrace it? Like, is there a light bulb moment, or what's been the feedback?
I think it's all of those. So there has been the light bulb moment where teachers have just gone, "Oh, that makes a whole heap of sense." That sort of that makes sense. To other sort of teachers, and this was more sort of one that my colleagues who was teachers sort of had, I suppose, either been paying attention to me or been paying attention to sort of other conversations and went, "Yes, I know what you're sort of talking about. I have no idea though how to bring that into my school." So there were those two, but then also from parents as well, that sort of those conversations around, again, that sort of, it makes sense, it's not difficult, and it's the start of something, and we don't know where that is going to go off into. So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we often talk about that we actually screwed up the planet, really, and we're all trying to educate or inspire the next generation because the people who are in power now are in power now, but the kids at school and that are the ones who are going to be the leaders of the future. And I think what you're doing now is really lovely. I can see this kind of spawning the next generation of real environmentalists and people that are designing. I mean, what do you guys hope will change in the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe once these children that whose lives you've touched, you go out in the real world.
The way I see it is I think there's a lot of people who are really interested in sustainability and are aware of biophilia, but the people who aren't aware of biophilia and the benefits of biophilia are the ones who benefit the most. So the children who are quite confined to their classrooms, aren't going outside, aren't engaging, or don't know how to engage in nature, they're the ones that are going to benefit the most from that. And I think in 5 years' time, that's when we'll see the real benefit and impact of what we're doing, because we're teaching everyone and making biophilia accessible for everyone. So I think it's providing that knowledge to every child, and that nature isn't a luxury for the children that pay more for, the Montessori nurseries or the forest schools and things like that. We're not trying to achieve that. We're trying to make it the normal in education for everyone.
that's a generation that embeds that sense of reciprocity, but not just about sort of consuming, that thing about care, that we all need to listen to nature and start to sort of question sort of whether all those sort of things, because like you sort of say, they are ultimately going to be the sort of the leaders, the clients, the policy makers. So we don't know where the impact is going to sort of be felt. But also I think as advocates, we did a research project a few years ago where we were looking at air quality in schools. And we found that it was the children who were the ones who could see the sensors, who were then going home to parents and going, "Mummy, Daddy, please switch your car off when you're outside school," and things like that. Oh. So maybe they become the sort of little warriors that go home and explain to sort of parents, because I sometimes think we've missed a generation of, or there is education sort of both ways, that they are the ones who can go home and go, "Let's go for a walk. Did you know? Stop and listen," those sort of things, that they become the little advocates for introducing nature into the home life as well.
Yeah, that's lovely. Because wasn't it there was when the whole recycling thing came into everybody, some people were doing it, some people weren't, but actually that movement came from the kids, wasn't it? Because they'd let the teachers were saying basically doing that. So my friends were saying, yeah, my kids are coming home and telling me which bin I'm supposed to be putting this in, and telling me off if I'm not doing it. So it'd be lovely if the kids go home and say, "Mum and Dad, do you know what this biophilia is? This is what it is. This is about getting out and why it's good for us." I think that's lovely. And I mean, ultimately, they're going to be the lead. They are going to be the leaders. They're going to be, I don't know what they're going to be. There could be anything from, heads of the United Nations to, the teacher in the school at the bottom of the road, but being able to nurture the planet and each other. Because as well, do you bring in that element of living systems and living everything, that we're all interdependent, that we are nature, that's nature, that there's no sort of it's a symbiotic relationship.
So when we were looking at the mapping exercise, so I did a sort of quite a big table that was looking at sort of how the subjects, the topics actually relate to sort of the biophilic
Yeah,
sort of side of things, but then also to the curriculum sort of side of things. And so it became a very messy diagram. But we then started to, like sort of say, to distill it. So, an activity, we can map it against to sort of the biophilic elements, but then to other things. So we were actually mapping it to other areas in the curriculum. So again, some of the issues that we have in the educational system is that the things are so siloed,
yeah,
and that stops at any of that sort of joined up thinking. So what you were doing in art, how does that relate to English? Well, it can do. Maybe it's just about the language that we're using. So we try and sort of embed it in actually what we are doing. But most of the activities that we're doing as well are sort of uh, are as part of a community. They are collective. They're together as opposed to just individuals sort of doing this. So I think by what we are providing and by the activities that we're encouraging, hopefully those conversations come out as well.
yeah. That's beautiful. That whole siloed thing is the why I'm doing the journal. It's the why I have, people on the podcast are so varied. It's because so we all learn from each other. We don't just keep learning from, designers, and we don't keep learning from, architects. We learn from ecologists, and we learn from, lighting people, psychologists, neurodivergents. And it's like then we just have this beautiful fabric to work from, that we can design, places and spaces better for people, and then realize that impact it has on planet and on ourselves as well. I think what you're doing there is lovely, and I can hear already that there's been such an extensive, thought patterns, groundwork that's gone on behind, like the sort of systems thinking behind the school, and and in order to deliver it, and in order to excite people about it. I think that's really lovely.
So I spend a lot of my time sort of in academia, sort of trying to introduce sort of what an architectural technologist is to the younger generation. And whether we were successful, I don't know. But it sort of didn't really matter, in that what we were trying to do is just have those much broader conversations about the impact that the built environment has on people. And it doesn't matter whether you're going to become a designer, or you're going to become a head teacher, or
Yeah.
the next person who commissions a building, or just who's going to maintain it, a painter and decorator. Just begin to understand that the impact that the built environment has on us. And then you go, well, if this has an impact on us, well, outside has an impact. And that's where Amelia's introduction, when she's out and about networking, I always find is beautiful. Go on, Amelia, what is it?
So this is what really made a shift in, I think, what me and Anne were doing, is when we learned that current UK children and education spend less time in nature outdoors than UK prisoners.
Mm.
And I find that really shocking that that's okay, and that we all buy into that belief that our children are going to school every day and going through education, and they're spending less time outdoors with the luxury of nature, which is what is given to prisoners. Your time outdoors is a luxury to your day. Your good behaviour gets you that we are providing less to our children. And I think that's where we, in our journey to the School of Biophilia is, what we're doing here, we need to make this change, and we just need to get things going and educate others about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's changing the way people think as well, isn't it? Because you do this in workplaces as well. If you take a meeting outside, or you go for a walk while you're having a meeting, it's completely different. You have, especially if you're having a difficult conversation, rather than being stuck behind white walls, and just going out and having a walk and a talk, or sitting outside with a cup of coffee under a tree. It just it's expansive, isn't it? It just allows your brain to either settle or to feel safe as well, isn't it? There's all these things that's, anyway, we could go on about how amazing biophilia is. I think we're probably, a lot of people are listening to this already, a converted audience, but we've had quite an increase of new people, I suppose, who are coming to biophilia over the last few months, and which is really, really wonderful. And I think I think the world is changing. I think it is getting better in the sense that there's lots of citizen work and work going on in communities and more localized, which is really wonderful. I do want to ask you though, as a bit of fun. Obviously, I've got the listeners here. You teach them something today. I don't know how you do that. Or you teach me something today. I think that's probably.
I did this when I was at UCLan, and it was an activity that I taught to midwives and things like that. And it was actually just about going outside and taking your shoes and socks off and finding a little bit of grass and literally just letting your feet sort of sort of twiddle your feet and things like that within the grass and things like that. And just have a moment sort of beforehand to think about sort of how you were feeling, take shoes and socks off, and then sort of come back to me sort of after 5 minutes and tell me how you felt after you had done that exercise. And that then brought in all sorts of conversations about I struggle to find a piece of grass.
Yeah.
And then you think about the built environment and sort of all those spaces that we are creating in designs and cities, or actually people who went out and were initially going, didn't want to do that, didn't want to have a look at my sort of slightly manky feet, but then realised actually when it was sort of within nature, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
That it was okay. The expectations were just taken away from them. That moment of just a little bit more clarity, a bit more sort of letting the body sense what was going on, whether it was warm or cold, and things like that. So yeah, go and take your shoes and socks off and go and stand in some grass for 5 minutes.
I think leading on from that, so my little boy is 4, nearly 5, and I find doing like a sense check really good when we go outdoors. So if he's like really overstimulated or doesn't like an environment, it's the 5 questions of what can you see, what can you hear, what can you smell, and just go through all of that and just let him speak about that and understand what them senses are doing in that environment. And that's quite helpful for him to take forward about how he's feeling within the built environment or in nature, and to identify that himself.
That's lovely. Yeah. So just really take my shoes off. So that's what you advise. I think that's it. I think after this podcast, I'm gonna, yeah, I mean, my shoes are nearly always off anyway, but I'm gonna go outside. There's quite a bit of grass out there, so I'm gonna go and stand there. My neighbours think I'm nuts anyway. So, but then I've got them all doing it now, which is great. So I'm gonna go out there and put my feet in the grass, and I do love that, don't you? When you put your toes in and you kind of like you wiggle them, like you've explained, and you know, you kind of do that. And then it's just this, it's the feel of the grass between you, and it's like cold or it's hot, or you can almost, I mean, it sounds a bit mad, but you cannot feel the heartbeat of the earth. But there's something quite visceral about feeling the earth, actually soil under your feet. I can't quite explain what it is, but it's quite, because we don't do it in the West. We are wearing, you know, on the built environment, we are wearing shoes all the time. We've even got flip-flops on if we have. I do quite a lot of work in Africa, and then, you know, half the time I end up kicking my shoes off and wandering around with everybody. It's just, it's lovely. And you're in the red earth, and my toes come back, and my feet are red. But it's so great. It's so great. And then I'm going to do that with, well, what you say about listening. You know, what can you see? What can you hear? What's the other ones? What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel?
Yeah, what can you feel, what can you smell, and sometimes that taste, you know, when you
Taste
with the
it.
smell as well, even just
Yeah.
picture taste that you smell, even if you're not always tasting it. That
Yeah.
kind of that connection to a memory of
Yeah.
being outside of fresh air, or, you know, clean water, or just how you perceive different things, that may seem really simple, but
Yeah.
just brings you back into who you are.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I'm really interested in this synesthesia. I think I'm a bit of that. So I kind of I can smell something and I can taste it, or I can hear something and I see it as something. You know, I was always like being an artist, I suppose. I've got an excuse to be completely bonkers when I'm talking to people. So
Well, you need to go and have a look at the work that Hundertwasser did. So he was an Austrian artist stroke architect, and he designed wonderful buildings But one of the things that he always did, he didn't have flat floors. All his floors are uneven because of that argument that our feet are designed to walk on unevenness, and that's how we sort of ensure that our balance and things like that. The moment we start putting our feet into shoes and things like that, it messes up our sort of balance, the way that we walk and things like that. So yes, he designed all his buildings in Austria with uneven floors so that it encouraged people to take their shoes and socks off and actually just walk along it with their bare feet.
I'm going to have to go. I'm hoping to go to Vienna at the end in August for a
Oh,
conference.
you have to go and see his work. He advocated that you not only had the right to decorate sort of within your building, but as long as you could, if you could reach out of a window anywhere where your arm was, that was your space to decorate as well. So you have these windows, and then just around there is where people have decorated them with mosaics and plants and things like that. So yes.
Oh, lovely. Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up. Thanks for that, Anne. Well, lovely. Well, we're getting to near the end of the podcast, and before I ask you the final magic question, is there anything else that you might like to add or to share with the audience?
When you come across us as a School of Biophilia, we want to make the message clear that biophilia is for everyone and that it affects everyone. Like I said, whether you take it home as a child or as a parent or as when you're coming towards the end of your life, this is for everyone, and we can cater for everyone. If there's anything you don't know or you want to know, we're here to discuss that and help you with that. It's for us, for you, for everyone.
And I'll just add to that then, we are looking to connect with schools, collaborators, artists' organisation, community groups, and anyone who believes that education should nourish not just the mind, but the whole person.
Lovely. And people should go to the
www.theschoolofbiophilia.co.uk.
Lovely. Right. Well,
we're all over social media as well.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to put the links on the spiel that goes with the podcast, and I really do hope people reach out to you. And if they're parents, look at your website, send it to the teachers, share things, download stuff. Yes, subscribe to what you're doing. I think it's a really lovely thing, and I really wish you well. And particularly the messaging of it's equity. It's for everyone. It's not just for people with loads and loads of money, which it is for as well, of course, but it's for everybody who might not have access or that budget to be able to go to a Montessori school or something, but to bring this to everyone, I think it's beautiful. So thank you for doing it. Thanks for bringing it into the world. So yes, final question. If you could paint the world with a magic brush of biophilia, what would it look like?
For me, it would be for my son to be outdoors all day, learning outdoors in different seasons. I don't want him to think when it rains he has to go indoors and hide away from that. I want him to learn how to be messy, how to be sustainable, and to bring all of our core biophilic concepts into life. And so that when he gets to a point of working in his career, he can, educate others as well.
I'm not sure I can top that. I think mine would be that I get to a point before I retire that I don't, every time I mention the word biophilia, have to explain what it is to people, that it becomes part of our language. It would be great if it was as well known as Google or something like that, that it became something that everyone was aware of.
Thank you for listening to the Journal of Biophilic Design podcast.